Greetings and welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education, which is being held on the traditional territory of the Lakota people, Gaelakasla. The board is live streaming this meeting, and later the meeting will be available on YouTube for those who wish to watch it later. Attending the meeting today are Trustees Kerr, Eddy, Briggs, Wilson, Hagan, and McMahon. And we have our Secretary-Treasurer, Kevin Patrick, our Superintendent, Dr. Jeremy Morrow, and Associate Superintendents Seismic and Morgan, as well as Natalie Crawshaw, our confidential secretary for this meeting. And providing technical support are Barb and Kai. And we also have listening in our communications officer, Jennifer Patrick. At the end of today's meeting, the superintendent or designate and I will answer questions related to tonight's agenda. Graduation is on everyone's minds, and I will leave it to our superintendent to talk about the details of the many activities that have been planned. Last week, I, along with some other trustees, attended a drive-through recognition ceremony for our Indigenous graduates at the Big House. It was a really well-organized event, and it was great to see our Indigenous grads being honored. I also participated in the preparation of videos for the district and for our high schools. My comments will be streamed, so I won't repeat them here. Suffice it to say that on behalf of the board, I am proud to extend best wishes to all our grads. And at the end of this meeting, I will invite each board member to give their personal messages to the grads. Everyone is going to miss the traditional ceremonies at Rob Run Center and at the marina, and I wish things could be different than they are during the current situation. I think the good news is that our reopening of schools to part-time classroom instruction appears to have been successful, and I'm sure that every day the district operates, we refine the protocols that have been put in place to keep everyone safe. The positive experiences that we have had in June, I think, bode well for September. I want to thank Mayor Andy Adams and Council for their support of this year's grads and for the proclamation honoring our students on June 20. This board has established a very good working relationship with Mayor and Council, and it is gratifying to work together on projects that benefit our students and the community. As we bring this school year to a close, I wish to thank and congratulate staff members who are moving on to new adventures in their retirement. Words cannot adequately describe how honored the board feels to have worked with such dedicated professionals, and we extend our deep appreciation for everything you have done for the students of School District number 72. And now over to our superintendent, Dr. Jeremy Morrow, for his comments.
Thank you, Board Chair Franklin. I want to acknowledge that this week has been designated provincially as the Week of the Graduate. And this Saturday, Carey High, Timberline, and Rob Run will be marking a milestone of graduation in outdoor-based graduation ceremonies. This will include a car parade where we are hopeful that the community will cheer on our graduates if they find themselves along that route, and that route will be published in tomorrow's newspaper. In addition, and I'll echo Board Chair Franklin's comment, I would like to thank City Council and Mayor Andy Adams, who have designated this Saturday in a proclamation as the Class of 2020 Graduate Day. And I would also like to acknowledge the teachers, administrators, and grad planning committees at all three schools for their efforts to ensure that these important events are taking place. And although they are different, I do believe that the grad group of 2020 will have a very memorable end to their 13 years of dedication to their studies and to the accomplishments that they've done. And I would just like to acknowledge this year's group of graduates. I'd like to thank them for their resiliency, for their commitment and wish them all the best as they step into their bright futures and into their next adventures. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge and thank our retiring staff, as did Trustee Franklin. And as the year ends without the traditional ceremonies and celebrations of the milestones of both our graduates and our retirees, it is important that we still find ways to acknowledge the many years and the sacrifices that our retirees represent. We'd like to thank you for your contributions to our district, to our students, and to their families. We are so grateful for all the work that you have done, the things that you've accomplished, and the consistent dedication that has been shown to your work. We have summer school registrations. We had a very positive response to our summer school programs. And tonight, Associate Morgan Kyle will be providing an update to the board and to the public. I also want to acknowledge that this Board of Education commenced with board meetings immediately after response to the pandemic. And behind the scenes, every board meeting, we have had Administrator from Robron, Kai Taylor, and the Manager of Tech, Barb Drake, here to support the board, and I appreciate their behind the scenes work. And so often it is the people behind the scenes that we don't often credit who carry the weight and the burden of all of these things. And we're so grateful across the system for the contributions that so many staff have made in this unprecedented and unusual year. And as we near the end of this disrupted and unprecedented year, I think it is appropriate to conclude these comments by thanking our students, particularly their families, our staff, and our entire community. We're grateful for your patience in dealing with so much complexity and uncertainty. And particularly, I want to thank our parents for partnering with our educators to support remote learning over the last few months. We have an amazing community, and we are so grateful that we truly have been all in this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Moore, for your comments. And now we shall move to agenda item 3, approval of the minutes of the meeting of May 26th. And the motion is that the minutes of the meeting of May 26th, 2020 are hereby approved as circulated or amended. May I hear a mover and seconder?
So moved. Eddie?
Hagan, second.
We have a mover and seconder. And any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion is carried. So let's move to item number 4. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, we shall move to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. And the motion is that the agenda is hereby approved as circulated or amended. May I hear a mover and seconder, please?
So moved. Kerr.
Seconded. Wilson?
Okay, Kerr and Wilson have moved that motion. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion is carried. So now we'll move on to item number 7, report of decisions from the June 16th, 2020 confidential meeting with John Kerr reporting. Vice Chair.
Yeah. Yes, we discussed items of finance and personnel, and we got through the agenda, and we are finished for the evening and also for the academic year.
Thank you, Trustee Kerr. And now we shall move down to educational issues, and Dr. Morrow is going to give us an update on the restart of classes.
Thanking our students and staff. We've really had a smooth transition back to in-class instruction as of June 1st. Just want to acknowledge that that's a result of the tremendous effort of a wide range of people, including our union presidents and our maintenance staff, really working to ensure that staff were safe upon their return. to in-class instruction. It does look different. The buildings are different. The way that the way that school is organized is different, but overall, it was as smooth a startup or restart in June as we could hope for. Interestingly enough to note that the actual suspension of in-class instruction was actually longer than a traditional summer would be. And so I would like to note that over the past 2 weeks, we've seen approximately 40% of our elementary students return to in-class instruction and approximately 20% in middle secondary return to class. So we have had a number of people avail themselves of that opportunity. I want to note as well that this is the last week that our district will be providing food services to families. We are finishing with about 240 care packages to homes this week. And with that will be a note that this is the last delivery, as well as information where hopefully our families can continue to access food security throughout the summer. One of the pieces that is clear is in the preparation of our sites for school, just the recognition of how much talent exists within our organization with our maintenance staff and how much can be accomplished in a short period of time, even under challenging circumstances. And again, the staff and students have adjusted very well to new protocols and have been safe. And I think just to share or reiterate the sharing yesterday from our Public Health Officer Bonnie Henry and the positive news that after the first 2 weeks of in-class instruction, there hasn't been a single case of COVID in the province that's been linked to the reopening of schools. I want to just share too with the board and the public that we are now busy and planning for September in earnest. Although we are optimistic and are hopeful to see a full return to classes in the fall, we are busy developing plans to ensure that we are in a more ready position than we were in March to respond to whoever we need to be on the dial that we have articulated that education is now in those, it could be somewhere in those 5 stages, and we are earnestly making plans to ensure that we are responding as well as we can and are organized for any of those eventualities. So as we finish a very unusual and unprecedented June, I'm just really grateful for our staff, for our parents, and for the patience and resilience of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Morrow. And now we're going to move on to 12B, Summer School Enrollment Update. Morgan Kyle.
Good evening, everyone. Just a brief overview of summer school. There was lots of conversation on whether we do summer that students need those. We felt it was important to go ahead. So we have sessions from July 6th to 17. They were filled for the elementary level within 20 minutes. So we've consolidated the locations. Instead of having them in a number of schools, we've consolidated to Penfield, Cedar, Robron, and Phoenix. We feel that we're able to best follow our protocols by consolidating the schools. We have 2 fabulous summer school principals in Sarah O'Shaughnessy and Sean McLaughlin who are running summer school. Because of the demand, we actually put in a second session for elementary, and we have 4 sessions at Penfield, 3 at Cedar, and 2 at Robron at the elementary level. We were really glad to hear that and happy that the city of Campbell River had partnered with us again to run the Rec and Read both at Robron and at Cedar. That's a really strong program that works with our students that are a little bit more vulnerable, and that will be done for the entire month of July. We will be following all the protocols. Much of the program, as much as possible, teachers have been planning for outdoor activities within the summer school, but they will be ready to go with whatever the PHO is saying that we need to follow, and all the protocols will be in place. So we're excited to see kids being active and engaged in learning and activities throughout the month of July. So thank you.
Thank you, Associate Superintendent Kyle, for that report. And now we're going to move on to item number 13, Business Administration, the Finance Warrants. And we have 5 finance warrants to consider going from January 31st to May 31st. And with regard to approving these finance warrants, we decided that we would have one motion to pass all the finance warrants. So before we go ahead with that motion, are there any questions for Secretary Treasurer Patrick on any of the finance warrants? Hearing none, the motion is this, that the finance warrants number 1 dated January 31st, 2020, number 2 dated February 29, 2020, number 3 dated March 31st, 2020, number 4 dated April 30, 2020, and number 5 dated May 31st, 2020 be accepted as presented. Sorry. Could I hear, please, hear a mover and seconder?
Hagan.
Hagan, and I saw Cat Eddie raise her hand.
Sure.
Okay, so Hagan and Eddie. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And the motion is carried. Okay. So now we're going to move to Trustee Remuneration, and we're going to ask Kevin Patrick to discuss that.
Yes. So each year we bring forward a review of trustee remuneration and a recommendation that comes out of a process that was developed by a community-based committee back in 2005. They developed a formula that looks at comparable sized school districts on the island, and it breaks remuneration into sort of uses a combination of per FTE as well as the overall size of the school district. So we've been using that consistently for the past 15 years, and it's updated annually as information from other school districts come in. And this year's the formula used in the recommendations have put forward the remuneration that's listed on the report, which is $16,033 for the chair, $14,641 for the vice chair, and $13,665 for the trustees. And the increase is $877 for the chair, $752 for the vice chair, and $812 for the trustees over the prior year. So if the board approves this, it will be in effect for July 1st.
Okay, trustees, you have two options when you consider this. Option 1 would be to go along with the increase that's been suggested by this committee, or to opt for no increase. So 1 is for the increase, 2 is no increase. What we need is a mover and a seconder for either option 1 or option 2. If you pick one, when you pick one of those options, I will read out the correct language for that motion. So if someone, may I hear a motion, and then we'll open it for discussion once the motion is on the floor. Okay, Trustee Kerr, I see your hand.
Okay, I will move that we accept the recommendations of the Secretary Treasurer.
Okay, is there a seconder? And Cat Eddie has seconded. This is the wording of the motion, just to be clear, that the board move forward with the recommendation for an adjustment to trustee remuneration as per the formula adopted by the board in 2005, which is reviewed on an annual basis in April of each year and will take effect on July 1st of the new fiscal year. So with the permission of the mover and seconder, if that is an appropriate motion, I will open the floor for discussion. And the mover is John Kerr. You may begin if you wish.
I'll keep my comments brief, but if I've read the figures correctly, with this increase, we will be third from the bottom in trustee remuneration, above Vancouver Island North and Vancouver Island West, which are considerably smaller districts than ours. So, you know, I don't think that the remuneration is out of line. I also note that the demands and the complexity of the position seem to have grown over the almost 6 years that I've been on the board. So I would recommend that we accept this recommendation.
Okay, are there any other speakers on this topic? Trustee Hagan?
Yes, this committee that was formed was a long time in coming. Before that, it's a really hard question to give yourself a raise. And we kind of prided ourselves as being the lowest paid trustees around for years. But that wasn't fair to people who have to make time commitments and take time away from their families. And so we felt that it was best to hand it off instead of trustees just saying ad hoc what they feel a raise should look like, that an independent body could examine and compare various districts so that we were in line with others around us and weren't being outrageous, and would remove that stigma of giving yourself a raise. So accepting this is accepting the fact that there's a committee, this is the report, and to stay within that realm of pay, we vote yes, and to rethink that whole schedule, which we can do as well, as to vote no.
Okay, so there any other speakers on the topic? Seeing none, Trustee Eddy.
I have to agree with Trustee Hagan that it makes me feel a bit squeamish to approve a raise for myself. But keeping in mind that as we move forward into the future and we do entice new individuals to join our Board of Education and leadership roles, that if we aren't maintaining a remuneration package that allows for the time invested, it may be more difficult to recruit people and new ideas to our Board of Education. So that's why I agree with this raise to keep on par.
Yeah, just as a point of information, the only people who can grant us a wage increase is us.
Yes.
So anyway, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those in favor say nay.
Opposed.
All those opposed say nay. And the motion is carried. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the capital plan application, and Secretary Treasurer Patrick is going to talk about that.
Projects that the school district undertakes are funded by the Ministry of Education. And there's lots of competing priorities around the province. So the ministry asks each school district to submit in their order of priority a list of projects for funding. Now, in most years, we'll get 1 to maybe 5 projects approved, but it really depends on what we're asking for, what the need is, and there's different programs that we can apply under. There's a seismic mitigation program, an expansion program, school enhancement, carbon neutral, playground equipment, and also one that's not on the report is busing. So I'm probably not going to read through everything. I'll maybe just touch on the top priority of each category that we've applied for. So under seismic mitigation, Cedar Elementary seismic is our number one. Again, that is part of our hope that we can either have or the board's hope that we can have a refreshed or renewed or preferably rebuilt Cedar Elementary. And so there is some seismic work that has been identified that we would like to utilize that, and if approved, leverage it for a new Cedar. Under the expansion program, we are hoping to get some funds to expand Ripple Rock by 2 rooms. On the school enhancement, actually our number one is a Cedar Annex. And again, this is part of identifying costs that impact Cedar or Cedar Annex that hopefully can get us, get the school district approval for replacement for Cedar. Under the school enhancement, you can see there are multiple roof and boiler replacements. So that program tends to be more standard maintenance type requests. Carbon neutral. So the school district, for the carbon neutral capital program, we actually pay a carbon tax to the government, and the government then returns it to us as part of a carbon neutral. So some years we get a little bit more than we pay. Some years we get less, and I think my understanding the way the program works is what goes in through school districts also comes back to school districts. So our number one request there is also boilers. When you can reduce older inefficient boilers, the savings and the reduction in carbon can be quite substantial. Playground equipment. So we've had 2 playgrounds funded, and of course one was funded through a community BCAA grant program. So 3 of our top priorities have been funded, and so our current request for next year is for Georgia Park Elementary to have a replacement. Now, for our busing, I don't have buses identified, and really what we do with busing is we will list our fleet of buses with the mileage, and if there's a particularly troublesome bus with a lot of costs, we'll add that. And basically, as they get older, they get into the higher priority, and we'll get funding approval for those. So we just received a number of buses this past year. I don't know if we're a high priority for next year because we did just get so many. I believe we had like 7 buses approved. So we'll probably be good for a while, but we do put our buses on the application just in case. So this part is just the application part. The ministry will take this, they will assess it, they may call and follow up with us on it, ask for more information. They typically provide board's approval in March of next year. And this is actually we'll end up getting funding in April of 2021 if approved. So it's a long forward-looking document, but it needs to be, because some of these projects will take months to get bid, have the tenders, the bids come in and get construction planned, and especially when there's only a summer window. So they've recent years kind of changed how they do this. I think this is probably the 3rd or 4th year that we've done it this way. It does work well, but it definitely is a lot of advanced planning.
Okay, thank you. We do have a motion to approve that the board approve the 2020-21 capital plan submission as outlined in the summary provided by Secretary Treasurer Patrick. Could I hear a mover and seconder, please?
McMahon.
McMahon.
Kerr.
And Kerr. Okay. And is there any discussion? Trustee Hagan.
Yes, I was wondering, could you remind me, please, how this fits within our strategic plan, especially with Cedar and that development? I understand the other issues quite clearly too, with the environment, and there's basic needs that have to be met, and playground upgrades. But with Cedar, it's been really important to us, and I would like to be reminded as to why that's such a priority and why we're asking that within our strategic plan.
Mhm. So we actually have a rebuild of Cedar on our 10-year facility plan. It was identified in mid towards the end of the plan to look at, do a review, and have the board make a decision of whether to replace it or refurbish it. The facility is like 50, well over 50 years, 55 years old. About the condition assessment is the poorest of the facilities in our school district, and when we looked at the facility plan, it was actually one of the poorest in the province at the time. Like, it was on the poorer end. It definitely wasn't the poorest, but so, and knowing that replacements take a long time, especially when you're not in the expansion areas of Metro Vancouver or South Island or the Okanagan, the process takes a long time. So the board chose to identify it as a priority in the facility plan, as well as once the numbers, rebuild numbers and seismic numbers came in, to make it a priority on the capital plan, and try to, I guess, get the condition up to like new, or new, preferably. And what that does, it gives a better learning space for students, as well as it reduces costs to maintain and repair and on an ongoing basis.
May I also add that in terms of the strategic plan, the second pillar of our plan is focused on Indigenous learners. Cedar School has a very high population of Indigenous learners, and we're honoring those learners by working very, very hard to build a facility for them that is built in consultation with Aboriginal Indigenous leaders in Campbell River. When we had a conversation with Liquida last week regarding the rebuilding, one of the things we talked about was, how many school buildings in the history of British Columbia have been built in consultation with Indigenous leaders. And in terms of our strategic plan, this is an important piece. We want to make the new Cedar School a place where everyone is welcome, but especially a place where Indigenous students see this as a place where they feel comfortable and an integral part of the school.
Mm-hmm. And I just need to point out as well, when I was speaking with how much in the future we'll receive the funding, this is for the 2021-22 call for projects application. I think on that report I have 2021, so we're actually applying for 1 year further ahead than what it has in the report. So
okay, but this plan is the 2021 capital plan as per the motion.
It will actually, we'll change that to the 2021-22.
Okay, 21-22.
Yeah.
Capital plan. Okay, yeah. That's good. Trustee Kirk.
Yeah, just point out that this has been a priority of the board for at least 5 years from the 10-year plan, but the board has made presentations to the past two ministers of education, Mr. Bernier in the Liberal government and Mr. Fleming in the New Democratic Party government about the necessity for this school. And in the last 5 years, nothing has gotten, despite the heroic efforts of our maintenance people, it gets to the point where it's just very difficult to keep up with the deterioration. So, this is a place that really needs to be redone. And as Chairperson Franklin said, it would be a really great opportunity to provide a lot of the Indigenous students who are generally from outside the local territories a place where they could have as a central meeting place, because they don't have access to those places in their communities. So, I'm really hoping that we can get this thing going.
And I'd also like to point out priority 2 in the board strategic plan has identifies to build a culture of learning and wellness. And the learning environment definitely has an impact on learning and instruction in the school.
Very good. McMahon, I saw your hand up, but I can't hear you.
Oh, am I muted? No. I
No, I can hear you now.
Okay. I don't have a lot to add to what Trustee Franklin and Trustee Kerr have said, except I just wanted to acknowledge the efforts that the senior management team have put into being strategic about this. I know we have talked about CETA for some time and trying to ascertain what the best strategy is moving forward and shifting our strategies to try and better meet some success. I really appreciate that creativity. Thank you.
Trustee Kerr. Oh, you're muted. Trustee Kerr is muted.
All right, I'm here.
Okay.
Just an additional comment is that this topic has been brought up to City Council in our twice annual meetings about our desire to have a replacement for Cedar School, and I think the City Council is really supportive of our efforts to try and get a new building there.
Yes. Okay, so there is a motion on the floor to approve the 2021-22 capital plan submission, and we do have a mover and seconder. If there's no more discussion, I would ask those in favor to say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. And the motion is carried. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, 13D, MyEdBC implementation funding approval. And again, Secretary Treasurer Patrick, you're on.
Yes. So as we're heading towards the end of the school year, due to some of the COVID impacts as well as turnover within the My Education implementation team, we are a bit behind in implementing the system. We want to make sure that it's successful within our schools and within our district. So we have identified that we're going to need to extend the project implementation by at least 6 months. So, and in order to do that, and considering that it begins, continues the implementation through summer, we require some additional funding approved by the board to continue to support this, the implementation. So we're looking for $167,000 from the unrestricted surplus to complete the My Education implementation within our district.
Okay, so we need to consider that, trustees. And there is a proposed motion with regard to that, that the board approve MyEdBC funding as outlined in the summary provided by Secretary Treasurer Patrick. So to get this discussion rolling, we should need a mover and seconder.
So moved, Hagan.
Hagan has moved it and seconded by Trustee Wilson. Yes, Trustee Wilson. Hagan and Wilson. And Hagan, Daryl, would you like to start the discussion with regard to the MyEdBC funding?
I think so far that the work that has been done has been very thorough. There's a lot of behind the the scenes work that when I come into the board office, I see them just trying to keep up with all the different things that are going on. And it's nice to see that there's going to be a smooth transition, because when this is fully utilized, we're going to need it to work really smoothly, and we can't leave it halfway done.
Okay, Trustee Eddy, you have a comment?
Just a quick question, Kevin. It was my understanding when we undertook the MyEd BC that we were one of the last 6 districts in the province to migrate over to it. How will the extension, will we be one of the final districts to complete if we have to extend?
So we are. So there's we're one of the last 4. Now we probably have a little bit more to do than the others, but the others 3 still have some of the modules that we are implementing. They are implementing, but they will be doing so without their implementation team. So they've just a little bit further ahead of us, where they've been able to get to that point where staff on hand are able to continue on the final changes. So, but yeah, so we very well could be the last holdout, if you will. But all the supports, we're in contact with those other school districts, learning best practices. We'll be getting, as we are the last, the implementation teams and supports from the Ministry of Education won't be around much longer either. So we'll utilize them while they still are there to finish this off.
Okay, Trustee Kerr, then Trustee Eddy.
My understanding was that we were to have this implemented by a time certain, and there would be penalties if we didn't have it operational by that time. Are we within the schedule of that, or are we going to be subject to penalties of any sort if we're overdue?
So we committed to, and our schools are currently using MyEd. So the basics of the program have been in place and being used since the beginning of the year. So we did hit that timeline. And I think I think the fines were meant to make sure that we did go. And once all districts committed, I haven't heard any other follow-up to anybody being subject to fines or fees for support or anything like that. So so we are on hand, but it's a very complicated, very large program. It is something that can be designed for, I'm starting to get an echo. It can be customized for districts, and so that's some of what we're looking at doing right now. Is you've got to make it fit your local context, and so our staff are continuing to do that, and we'll get there. So still a little bit more to do. We're beyond what the ministry, I think we have definitely satisfied what the ministry was looking for.
Kat? No? Okay. Okay, so now everybody's going to need to turn their microphones on because we're going to vote. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And the motion is carried. Okay, now we're moving on to 13E regarding the statutory right-of-way Robron land disposal. And Kevin Patrick will tell us what that's about, and then we'll move forward with that vote.
Yeah, so I'd love to give you the history lesson because I had to dig into the property records here and I found it really interesting. But the bottom line is, since construction of the school, or shortly after construction of the school and upon completion of the Robron Center complex, there has been some city utility services in the ground that cross the property. And this agreement is basically to recognize that city services are there, and for the school district to grant a statutory right-of-way to the city to basically protect those services. And it protects the school as well by making sure that the city has access to, so that they can maintain and take care of those services. And then, of course, there's the right-of-way for the city as well. So it is a disposal, but it's not full disposal. So the Minister of Education is not required to approve this, but the board is required to provide a bylaw. So that's what I'm looking for the board to do today is once the bylaw has been approved by the board, then I can conclude an agreement with the city. With any land and property agreement, we do have legal services take a look at it, which they have done, and they are satisfied with the attached agreement as it's written.
Trustees, in order for us to move forward on this, we will need a unanimous motion to give all three readings at this meeting. So the motion is that the bylaw to dispose of the land at Robert Center, which is enclosed by Plan EPP 75902, statutory right-of-way, plan of parts of Lot A, Section 32, Township 1, Comox District, Plan 32545, be given all three readings at this meeting. For this, I need a mover and seconder. Moved Cat Eddy. Seconded Wilson. So it's moved, it's proposed and seconded. Now, because it needs to be unanimous, I will have to read your name. So we'll, Trustee Kerr.
Aye.
Trustee Eddy.
Aye.
Trustee McMahon.
Aye.
Trustee Hagan.
Aye.
Trustee Briggs.
Aye.
And Trustee Wilson.
Aye.
And that is, the motion has been passed unanimously. So now I have to read this motion 3 times, and for each of the motions I need a mover and seconder. The motion is that the bylaw disposes of Robert Center, which is enclosed by Plan EPP 75902, statutory right-of-way, plan of parts of Lot A, Section 32, Township 1, Comox District, Plan 32545, is hereby read for a first time, and I would hear a mover and seconder.
Kerr.
Eddy.
Okay, moved by Kerr, seconded by Eddy. Is there any discussion?
I have a question.
Trustee Hagan?
Now, if we give them a right-of-way, did that right-of-way occur before we built? Or did they put the whatever they have underground afterwards?
So here's thank you for asking about the history. So this was actually a joint, the park at Robron was a joint project with the city and the school district. So the school district actually paid for some of the improvements on the city side, as well as the school district side. Now, these services were put in about 2 years after the school went up and the fields were finished because there was flooding. And basically the school district asked the city to fix the flooding. So they put this service in. So the service is for us, but it also picks up some runoff from the city side and near the neighborhoods. But it really was intended to help flooding on our side of the property. So it was installed after the school was finished and just after completion of the park.
Trustee Hagan?
Yeah, will this at all, if we were trying to dispose of this property in the future, would it depreciate the property if there's a right-of-way through it?
It can have an impact. Originally, the right-of-way asked for was like 20 meters, and we insisted that it be reduced, and we came to an agreement at 5 meters for a width. Now, it can have an impairment of, but it doesn't necessarily restrict. There are, if depending on the use, the need, developers or purchasers can build around the statutory right-of-way, but it also does not prevent the statutory right-of-way and the services from being moved. At this point, the agreement is with the property, and it will extend past ownership of the school district. So a potential purchaser would be purchasing the obligation to honor the right-of-way, but it can be moved. So it does have an impact. It's hard to say what exactly that impact is, because it really depends on what the purchaser is going to do with it. So, and in this case though too, if again it is serving the property for potentially any future purchaser as well. So it's something for them to take into consideration.
Yep.
Okay, we will move on then. Is there any more questions? Trustee
Yes.
Kerr?
I just, at this point, I think we should note that there are no immediate plans to dispose of the property. I think it was more a theoretical question. It was asked if sometime in the distant future, the school district did not have a use for the Rob Brown facility. But right now, we're not looking at the disposal as far as I can see. Is that correct?
I believe
That's correct. That's correct from my point of view. I'm just trying to protect the school district's interests for the future and not for the immediate present. We have no intention at this time of closing or selling that particular property.
no. And from what I understand, by allowing this right of way, it removes the cost of, say, replacing that drain from the district. It's the responsibility of the city. When we give them the right of way, then they're responsible for replacing those drain tiles, that drain. So it actually saves the district money when you consider what it costs to replace drainage. Okay, I don't see any more speakers on this topic. So yes, Trustee Wilson.
I would just like to congratulate everyone who was involved with reaching this solution, because I remember when it was first presented to us several years ago for consideration, there were a lot of complexities that didn't seem to have many answers. And as you say, Kevin, even the history had been lost. So congratulations on excavating the history and reaching a conclusion that's satisfactory for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would also add that from the city side, having Michelle Babchuk basically working with the school district has been a very positive thing in terms of cooperation between the district and the city. Okay. And if there's no more speakers, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion is carried. The same motion, I need a mover and seconder.
McMahon?
So moved.
Okay, moved Wilson, seconded McMahon. It is proposed that the bylaw to dispose of the land at Rob Brown Center, which is enclosed by Plan EPP 75902, statutory right-of-way plan of parts of Lot A, Section 32, Township 1, Comox District, Plan 32545 is hereby read for a second time. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Okay. And we need a motion, a mover and seconder for the third reading.
Hagan.
Moved Hagan, seconded Eddie. Okay. And this is thirsty work, ladies and gentlemen.
Do you have to read the motion?
Yes, I have to read it again. That the bylaw to dispose of land at Rob Run Center, which is enclosed by Plan E PP 75902 statutory right-of-way plan of parts of Lot A, Section 32, Township 1, Comox District Plan 32545 is hereby read for the third time, passed and adopted. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. The motion is carried. Okay, there's in terms of any other business, there is a notice that the summer board office, the board office will be closed from July 20 to August 14. Now we're going to move into questions from anyone present, and I'm going to take a look on my computer here to show the Q&A to see if there are any. Okay, let me see. Show Q&A.
Can I ask a question first?
Yes, you may.
I was just wondering about the summer school program. I saw that there was a wait list posted, and I was wondering if it was a big wait list and if there was going to be more classes offered for that wait list.
Okay, thank you for that question. I believe Morgan Kyle was in charge of that, so I'll turn that question to her.
Okay, I can respond to that. We still have some students on the wait list. We have 50 students, and we had significantly more, so we added in the second session. So in total at this point, we have 375 elementary students that are registered for summer school. And we have 58 at secondary, which includes students going into grade 9. And we have 87 at middle and 58 at secondary. So we don't have any more space at the elementary level to accommodate the 50 students that are still on our wait list, unfortunately.
Okay.
And are we doing anything to support those students differently, or they're just out of luck for that program for this year?
The unfortunate part is we don't have any teachers to support any more courses. So we have maximized the number of teachers we have. And it really comes down to that. If we could accommodate, we absolutely would, but we do not have the teachers.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So while I'm waiting for questions, I'm going to go around the table and give our trustees an opportunity to make a statement, possibly congratulate our grads. So I'll start with Vice Chair John Kerr.
Well, I'd like to congratulate everybody for successfully completing your first 13 years of education. Many of you will be carrying on either this year or the next year to post-secondary education. And according to what I've been reading, finding out, and from personal experience, your learning doesn't stop on June 26th or whenever your graduation is. It will continue in various forms. It is important. It seems to be important, especially in these times with unemployment the way it is. It seems important that you take advantage of learning opportunities past secondary school, post-secondary, whether it be trades, whether it be different skills, or post-secondary, for example, college, university, technical trades, 4-year degrees, and so on. So I would really encourage you to, maybe if you wish to take a break after your first 13 years of education, to really give serious thoughts to continuing to learn either formally or informally, because whatever, it never hurts people to learn, and the more qualifications you have, the better opportunities you have to be, to have a successful and economically successful life. So again, I wish you all the success. Congratulations on what you've done, and best of luck in the future. Well, not necessarily luck, but just best of life, I suppose, in the future.
Okay. Trustee Eddie.
Well, congratulations. What an amazing accomplishment to get through your first 13 years of education. I'm sure that our graduates are sharing some feelings of disappointment that this year's ceremonies don't look quite the way as they have in last year's. I'm sure that there's some fear looking forward into the future as to what it is that they wish to achieve or how they wish to model their lives. But that fear is normal, and it's part of learning. And you've got great, brilliant, bright futures ahead of you with lots of years to find your passions. So just keep being lifelong learners, and thanks for sticking it out and making it through.
Great. Trustee McMahon. Trustee McMahon.
Well, am I here?
You are here.
Okay. Well, I would also like to offer my sincere congratulations to those folks who have completed their 13 years, and I echo Trustee Eddie's sentiments around this very unique and odd year. I think you might find that it will provide some really good storytelling as you move forward. It may have its disappointments at the moment, but everybody will be remembering 2020 as a grad year. So I encourage you to embrace that uniqueness. I don't have a lot of advice for you going forward. I know you'll get tons of it. My only hope is, I think, that you continue to listen to yourself, that you don't lose yourself, that you continue to have the conversations with yourself that will lead you forward in terms of your life goals and your life pleasures. So again, congratulations.
Very good. Trustee Hagan.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I've watched this grade grow up, and I'm excited about the future. It's not always what we think it is. Sometimes it turns out totally different. You thought you'd be walking up a hallway and shaking hands with the superintendent of schools, and that all your friends would be there to celebrate your success. But sometimes things are just different. They turn out differently. And I think if we take the time, we can learn from the differences, and you'll look back and say, wow, remember that time in my life when this occurred. It's an exciting time that you have in front of you. I hope you embrace it. Just wake up in the morning and say, I am glad to be where I am at, and I'm going to move forward. My own personal experiences, I started off and studied theology, ended up running a jail for 30 years. Now there's a contrast. And I believe your lives are going to be the same. It's the tools that you're learning right now at home with your family and in schools that's going to take your life to places you never even dreamed of. And I'm excited for you. There's two other comments I want to make, and that's what an amazing start to school this year. There were no COVID related incidences, and I saw that there was success. And I watched our teams of leaders in this district, from QP to our principals and vice principals to our senior staff, teachers, working all together to see that they could provide the best form of learning that they could. I was glad that our strategic plan included our First Nations interests, and that we're focused on moving towards those kinds of positive outcomes in our district. And I wanted one last comment, is those that are retiring, thank you for spending your lives and your time and your passion. And I want to wish you all the best in your retirement. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trustee Hagan. And Trustee Briggs?
Well, it's noisy here again.
It's okay.
I just want to say that these interesting times don't overshadow your great achievement of graduating, and we can't wait to see how you continue to overcome and succeed. So congratulations to the class of 2020.
Thank you. And last but not least, Trustee Wilson.
Thank you. I could echo what everyone has said because there's so many words of truth there. The congratulations, the fact that we're living in interesting times. And I think one of the lessons that we have all learned is that when it's an interesting time, there are challenges, but there are also some gifts that have come to many of us through this unusual circumstance. One of them is learning to make the best of a situation. One of them is how flexibility is really important to our lives. And also, like Bonnie Henry said, kindness. It's a huge lesson that she has reminded us of, and I think all of us can carry well into the future. So even though graduation ceremonies will be different this year, they can be enjoyable and they will be memorable. You'll all say, I remember the graduation of 2020, and it will be different from most of them. So best wishes to graduates, best wishes to our retirees, and best wishes to us all. Thank you.
Great. Well, I don't see any questions from our vast streaming audience tonight, so I think we can move forward with an adjournment.
I'd like to move adjournment, please.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Sounds like that's carried. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great summer.